Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice lunch. And we're going to just jump right into our next panel, which is all about, what this conference is all about, the digital world and the digital transfer. And our panel is called Go Digital, Digital Transformation Within 1.4. And I'm going to quickly introduce the speakers here, and I'm going to just let them start. Please give a big round of applause to Dr. Tzvi Marom, founder and CEO of Batam. Johan Batting, head of EMEA at Slack. There he is. Micheline Casey, the brave, who just spent another hour here before and braving the heat. So big applause for her. She's the global head of data digital services at Ford Mobility. We have Rani Argov, co-leader and head of strategy at Deloitte Digital Israel. We have Tal Laufer, CEO of Spectronics Emerson. Keep on clapping. It's going to give you a nice atmosphere, too. Rafi Haddad, business development manager at Flex. Eva Platz, head of business unit Israel and Silicon Valley at NRW Invest. And we have Menachem Shoval, manufacturer consultant at Applied Materials. Have a great panel.
Thank you, everybody, for the encouragement. In 45 minutes, we will know if we were worth it or not. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask questions, and in the end, leave about 5 minutes for questions from the audience. But if somebody feels that he needs urgently to ask some question, can raise the hand. This does not include permission to pee. You can go without raising your hand. That's okay. So the way we will ask questions, and anybody from the panel that wants to refer to it, please do, and we will do it in a kind of a short session from left to right. So if you feel that you want to refer to any of the questions that were sent in advance, with pleasure. Okay. So the first question is, why do we need Industry 4 at all? Anybody wants to refer?
Well, I assume I am the only one who represents here the semiconductor industry. I don't know about the other. And for the semiconductor industry, Industry 4 is the only one to continue, and the only way to continue. I mean, without being able to use this amount of data and to do it on time, we will not be able to control the process in the fabs, or as Applied Material is doing, being able to measure the real size or whatever other parameters that are on the wafers. You have to understand that a silicon wafer stay in the line about 2 months. There will be over 600 different steps in the line. There are about 5,000 wafers, 30,000 wafers in the line continuously. There is a huge amount of data. And you have to have all this data and to be able to understand the correlation between the information in order to be able to control the process.
Okay, now we know that the rep of the semiconductor industry believes in Industry 4. But we know for sure that countries like Germany embraced Industry 4. I myself visited several sites. But countries, for example, like Italy, are kind of not fully embracing Industry 4. They are hesitating, etc. Is Industry 4 also important to a country without real large-scale industry like Israel, and not just niches like the semiconductor industry?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. For a country like Israel, because you have many super innovative companies which can become relevant as vendors, But I also think it's just a fantastic opportunity to disrupt. Yeah, look at what the United States is trying to do in the car industry. For quite a while, big car companies, then certainly European car companies were at the forefront. Today, you have a lot of new players and unexpected players who are trying to really revolutionize that industry. And so I think Industry 4.0 is also an opportunity to revolutionize, and therefore it's an opportunity for everybody.
Hi, I'm going to try and broaden the perspective just a little bit. And I'm going to talk about Israel as an example. I think Israel is even kind of late to the party. While countries like Germany or China or the US have gone a long way from a governmental standpoint to incentivize technology in order to bring back manufacturing into the country or contain and remain at a leading position, we have a rather interesting situation because we have a bunch of really interesting technologies in our backyard, as we can see in the DLD, but we have some real challenges from a manufacturing standpoint. So you don't have the advantages of the scale because the market is small. Costs are getting higher and higher. Productivity is not that high anymore. And you need technology, you need data, you need sensors just to stay in the game. So the challenge here is right in front of your face. As a manufacturer, your only way to remain in a good position and within the competition is utilize those technologies, invest in that data and capabilities to make sure that production capabilities, your ability to compete on price, quality, and other merits will be coming out of that Industry 4.0 or revolution.
Okay, we got a description of why Industry 4 is important, but as we know, Industry 4 has lots of elements into it: quality control, production, flexibility in production, etc., etc. The main focus of this seminar or this short conference is going digital. How you perceive the go digital part of Industry 4 and how important it is?
Happy to start. This is not sure if that's working. Hi. So in the U.S., we actually aren't familiar with this term, Industry 4.0, but we are quite familiar with digital transformation and disruption and innovation. And I think, from Ford's perspective, it's an end-to-end digital transformation. It starts in manufacturing, but in the supply chain, but understanding and instrumenting all of the data points along the supply chain, all the data points in the vehicle, and we're talking about tens of thousands of data points we can get out of a vehicle. We can use those data points to not only inform and provide insights and predictions around how the supply chain is going to go, but equally as importantly, we're taking that to the front end. We're taking that out to our vehicle customers and owners and helping them understand when something might go wrong with their vehicle, whether it's time to get your oil changed or your battery is about to die, to help them improve their ownership experience of our vehicles. And that goes across any channel that we have to communicate with them. We've got an app that we use to provide a very specific amount of vehicle-related services and information back, but we also communicate with our customers via the web and the HMI in the system. And having all of those points, all of those different channels digitally integrated is key to the experience that Ford is trying to get to for our customers as we are going through this very dynamic time of transforming our entire business model from just being a hardware manufacturer, a company that produces products with steering wheels and tires, to a company that produces integrated products, services, and experiences around the vehicle, as well as provide mobility transportation services to smart cities. As cities' infrastructure gets smarter, as we can get to that age of vehicle-to-vehicle communication, all of those points have to be instrumented. But importantly, very importantly for us now is just refocusing a lot of that data, that analytics, and that prognostics, predictive capabilities back to our customers and the user experience that our owners have.
Okay, thanks. My perception is that Industry 4 would be valuable if it can create some kind of disruption, if it will not be more of the same. Because more of the same is just more of the same, me better, maybe. So anybody wants to refer what creates disruption in digital technologies regarding Industry 4? What forces actually create the disruption?
Well, back to the semiconductor industry, with your permission. The features on the wafers are so small today. The features on the wafers are so small today that it's beyond the resolution of the optics and even the electronic microscope. You can't see them. The only way to detect or to measure is to collect a lot of around data from many, many different kind of tools and to combine this information together to a one number. So I wouldn't say disruption in the, I mean, without it, it will not go. That's the only way to continue making small parts like microprocessors on silicon wafers.
I would like to add just a little bit. I'm not from the semiconductor business, so we act in the oil and gas industry. And I would say that every second question from customers is what we can get more, or how we can get more from the equipment. So let's take an example. We sell flame detectors, and they always looking to get what I can get more, rather than, you know, identifying the fire or get the alarms. Look on humidity, how I can track after employees, what will be the air emission in the factory, and more and more. And the same, and we keep and see these questions coming up from customers, and they are looking to get more. And I think this is one of the majority moving from industry 0.4 rather than we have today.
It doesn't work.
So continuing on that point, I think the one privilege we have as consultants is actually viewing many industries and identify the patterns of change. So if I have to highlight three major forces that sort of create disruption, like you asked, Zvi, I would say we can talk about consumer motivations and the way they change, consumers wanting to experience products and services in a much different way. I would talk about technology maturity. So technology needs to have the ability to address and serve those needs. And I would talk about new bidders or new players to the game. So in many of the cases, you identify these three forces: technology, consumer motivations, and new entrants to the arena, and they feed each other to create that disruption. And if you look at the industry that I feel is changing now as we speak, so you look at financial services, the change has basically happened. But if you look at the healthcare industry, all of the components are out there. We don't want to experience medicine or medical services the way we have, the way we are used to experience them. Technology can provide us with personalized medicine, with creative care, with preventive medicine, and so on. And we see a whole lot of new players, new companies. I can't even call them startups anymore because they are huge, offering those services. So it didn't come from the incumbents, but the traditional players, the HMO, the health systems, they need to adapt in order to address those needs. And we see a lot of motion in that ocean these days.
Okay, it's a popular question, Zvi. Let me try maybe a short and provocative answer. I think there's only one thing that really makes a difference here. And that one thing is connection. Previously, you had all your machines and people working in isolation and having lots of data to be optimized, etc. The real difference in Industry 4.0 is you can now connect them and make them thereby a lot smarter and focus on the relevant part of the data you have.
I will, for a minute, in order not to leave the electronics and the semiconductor industry alone, I will step for a minute out of the moderator job. I can tell you that on the biomed, as we are on the edge, and the pharma on the edge of transferring ourselves from the age of chemistry to the age of biology, it's nearly impossible to work without completely new software tools and digital tools that are totally absent. Maybe they will come with Industry 5, but in reality, it's not possible to go with the new developments with the existing tools. In any case, technology is nice, but everybody knows that organizations have a kind of organizational chart and a certain structure. How do you leverage the new possibilities and the new demands in data and analytics to change the organizational structure?
I'll start. I bet we all have our own stories. But inertia is a really hard thing to overcome inside organizations. I'm sure we've all worked for companies who might have access to the best technology, but actually can't figure out how to reorganize or apply that technology in the right way to prevent that disruption from outside forces from happening to them. But it really does take a lot of political will. Implementing technology, I always say, is fairly easy to do. Getting people aligned and reconnecting those dots across the organization in a way to really take advantage of all the possibilities is really difficult to do. It requires a lot of things internally, political capital, training, education, communication, making sure you've got aligned incentives, et cetera. But it is quite the challenge. I'm sure you've seen that in your consulting career.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe let's try a provocative answer again. It's don't leave it to your existing teams to do the digital disruption. I think more often than not that is going to fail, especially if you think about what is the IT infrastructure that is necessary to really embrace Industry 4.0. I think what is often in the consulting world called a like two-speed architecture or two different speeds is really what you need to go. You need to have somebody who owns your existing legacy infrastructure, and then you have to have somebody really different who is on the forefront of building that Industry 4.0 infrastructure for you.
In Industry 4, who do you believe in the organization has to be involved in order that it will be successful? The CEO, the IT manager, you need an external consultant, an outside team. Who do you think needs to be involved in the organization in order that the whole process will be successful?
As always, I would believe it should start from the CEO, and it should be across the board. But if you'd like that it will be fully implemented and successful, the same as you do with ERP, GX, and other stuff, it should be, involving the supply chain operations, marketing, I would say R&D. But you need the whole organization to be fully focused on the implementation process that it will be fully successful. If it's just one man, it will start in one point and ended in the same point that you actually have started. Other than that, I don't see it successfully at all.
So I'm from Germany. We do have, as you know, a lot of industrial companies there. And this is because our state always supported the industry. But we do have a lot of small and medium-sized companies who are in that business. And they sometimes are not able to do it from the inside, but they need to work with companies from outside. This is the reason why I'd like to tell you that any company, and also any Israeli company that is innovative and interested in working with our small and medium-sized companies, is highly welcome to work with them. I also have to admit that we have very different business cultures. Our long traditional small and medium-sized companies are willing to work with innovative startups and companies who can help them with their digital transformation. But believe me, the Israeli culture in being very quick, fast, is very different. So sometimes you need a little, or the companies need a little help to come together.
Just want again to step outside of the moderator job and tell to Eva from Germany. I've been pretty busy on that and visited University of Aachen and so on and so on. And my company, for example, when we try to cooperate with companies like Siemens, it's extremely difficult, and the Industry 4 even makes it more difficult because they develop their internal procedures with the data privacy, with protection of the data, etc. But we succeeded wonderfully with working with a consortium of a small mid-size, $50 to $100 million companies by creating an environment that encompasses all the partners together and dealing with the Go Digital as a platform that unites all the partners. And that might work. In any case, that gives a preview to the next question. You know that now data policies, data privacy, GDPR is becoming more of an issue. It puts burden, it puts compliance, it's put even criminal sanctions on companies that do not do what is needed. How do you think this is going to affect the Go Digital? And on the other side, what steps needed to be taken in order to avoid that this will be a barrier but can be part of the general compliance?
Okay, for the semiconductor industry, the IP issue that you just raised is a real problem. I mean, big companies, the knowledge, know-how, how to make those parts in the silicon is the heart of the business. And as of today, they will not be able to put it on the cloud, whatsoever. The only way is to have your own servers and to hire your own algorithm team and to develop everything you need for yourself. But only the giants can do that because that's very expensive. So that leads to another thing that we see in this industry, merging of many companies to big giants like Intel, Samsung, TSMC, maybe 5, all over the world. Part of it is because of this problem. How can you, since we cannot avoid getting into the Industry 4, having a lot of data, and how can we manipulate this data fast enough to be able to use it, on one hand. On the other hand, we cannot enable it to be exposed. The only way is to do it yourself. That's for the semiconductor. Others, I don't know.
Well, I'll add a little bit from our perspective, and just personally having been in the data and tech business for over 20 years now. My slant might be a little bit contrary, but I view GDPR and other regulations as quite exciting opportunities for companies to actually pull together their very siloed historical legacy systems and create those 360 views of customers or products or equipment, other key assets across the organizational food chain, and actually be able to leverage it and enable additional opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise. With strong data governance and strong data management, you can do so much more with the data that you've already got internally. You know where your data is. You can access it. You can pull it together. You can use it for self-service analytics internally. You can leverage it for stronger, more intelligent communications with your customers. Externally, you can leverage it to improve your product and customer service experience. So I'm sure there are companies that view regulation as a compliance checkbox. And of course, that's an important aspect of regulation. But for many companies, including Ford, we're viewing that opportunity as a large enabler for many of the things we want to do as part of our digital transformation efforts, and viewing privacy by design as a competitive differentiator that we can offer that potentially many other OEMs can't, due to the things that we are trying to put in place not only today, but the roadmap that we've got building out around our consent and opt-in experience, that will allow us, hopefully, to collect more data from our customers, but also support their loyalty and their trust in the Ford brand, because they'll know that we're managing the data appropriately on their behalf. We're leveraging it only when they've agreed to allow us to leverage it, and we're protecting it in the ways that we've agreed to protect it. So we view it as a competitive differentiator for us.
I couldn't agree more, and actually spend a lot of time in executives' rooms trying to convince CEOs or CDOs that the GDPR is not a threat, it's actually an opportunity. Because, well, I think two really important issues here. One is, for a while now, companies have been gaining data without even knowing that, without utilizing that, without leveraging that for better businesses. And now comes along GDPR and sort of forces you to redefine or to just define your data strategy. So you need to articulate what data do you want to gather, how will you use it, will you play offensively or defensively with it? And the second point of Michelin is spot on. If we create better trust from our clientele, we can do incredible stuff for them, using that data if they feel confident that we will not mistreat it. So that's an important step in the maturity of data-based businesses.
Okay, now let's say that we arrived to Utopia and we implemented Industry 4, and we have done everything all right, and we accepted all the advice that we got. How an industrial company can monetize the data? Or maybe we cannot monetize the data.
I think implicitly, I totally agree with what Micheline just said, yeah, and I think that is actually also the answer to that question. You are monetizing it by better products and better services, and if done right, potentially also by better internal processes. Yeah, monetization is not always selling data. I would argue the majority of monetization cases is utilizing it to build better products and services.
Sure, there are direct opportunities for monetization and indirect opportunities, and being able to take that data and leverage it across your value chain for improved efficiencies or optimization opportunities or examples of indirect. And then there's ways you can spin up new products and services or potentially leverage it for new business models as more direct revenue opportunities. But I think that's kind of, as companies, as we get more instrumented from front end to back end, that's going to be critical to protecting ourselves from being disrupted and potentially disrupting others.
Let's take an example of the metrology companies that need to measure the process through. They will not sell the software. They will not sell the algorithm. It's not a direct money, but it is improving the ability of being able to make the product. So with those capabilities, if I can make something that is better, that give better production, that's money.
Okay, so there is, to the opinion here, there is no direct monetizing of the money, but it has a value in the value chain which is substantial. Let's have something for our guest from Germany, Eva. From my experience in Germany, and we have an office in Germany, there is a big cultural gap between the way that people are being doing things here and the way that things are being done in Germany. Yet, Germany is extremely interesting for Israel from the industrial point of view, and Israel is very interesting for Germany from the innovation point of view. So how do you think this can work for Israeli companies, not just trying to sell into the giant German economy, but what we can do more than that?
Yes, I totally agree with what you say. This is what I learn. The Israeli companies, you're so fast. You're so you just try. German companies do not try. They discuss very long if this is the very best solution for them, and then start working. First thing I want to tell you is you need time to start a cooperation with a German company. This is how we grew up. We discuss things before we start. But I can tell you, as soon as you started, this machine runs forever. It definitely runs. It runs endlessly. So you decide if it's worth negotiating all these things beforehand. Companies who are interested in working with German companies, Israeli companies, you're very welcome to contact me. I'm going to help you get into those networks and get to know those companies. But I'm quite sure you will need someone on the ground very soon. This is why German companies want someone nearby, because this is how we grew up. You just have to know this. This is something I could give you as advice, and I tell you, please decide if it's worth. But I know a lot of companies who finally said it was worth trying it.
First, I agree with Eva. I just have to say that in our cooperation with mid-sized German companies, that at the beginning we're seeing not Mexican jumping beans, but Israeli jumping beans. We travel back and forth and back and forth. And my measurement as the CEO of the success was that after a year, unbelievable processes happened. Some key people in the German company agreed not to go to vacation. This is the ultimate measurement. You know, if this happens, you really succeeded. So I don't say that you have to adopt this measure, but in any case, just to know. If we are already here and the time is passing, I have to say that I have another question. When I try to talk to people here about Industry 4, in many cases they ask Industry what? They never heard about Industry 3, let alone 4. So you need a kind of educational process. What kind of educational process you think we should have, and who are the guys that should take it forward in order that the process that we call Industry 4 will be successful?
Yeah, let me try that. Let me maybe at the start out myself as yet another German on the panel, albeit one who left Germany more than 30 years ago. So that gave me a unique opportunity to compare a German education system to the American education system. I think the first thing you need mathematic education. People just need to get better in math, and they need to be less afraid of it. And especially, I'm just observing my own daughter. It's especially true for girls. Yeah, the obstacles we are still erecting for girls to embrace mathematics is unbelievable as an organization. I think we need to fix that, but we need to fix it for all. I think the second one is, and Eva, I think you alluded to that, is we need to educate that failure is not a bad thing. Yeah, and try things, and if they go wrong, well, you have learned something. You have learned that that is not the way to do it. You are now much smarter. And the final one is the fun of building. Yeah, I think that is, sometimes that is disappearing. And I see something increasingly similar actually in the United States. And so to sort of remind all of us who are, I think, in essence, very, very creative people and who love building, how fulfilling and how much fun that is, and to give that experience early on, I think that is really important. Who does that? I'm a huge believer in train the trainers, and the trainers here are the teachers, so you really need to train the teachers to make that change happen. In companies, you need to really do change management. For example, for us at Slack, we have a hell of a lot of engineers. Then we have very little marketing and we have very little salespeople, but we have a lot of customer success people. Our customer success team is almost as big as our engineering team, and these are people who are going out, who are engaging in change management processes with our customers and jointly define the new processes that they really need to embrace to make that innovation happen.
I think...
Just a second, I want to tell you that a couple of days ago, some professor of education in Israel wrote an article that was long awaited by the pupils on elementary school that you shouldn't learn mathematics. And I have to say that when I read the full article, not just the headlines, it was completely not politically correct, but politically insane. So I refer to it, I agree with you about technical and scientific education. I wrote to him 2 + 2 = question mark. It still has not been answered, so I hope that we won't hear from him in the near future. So please continue.
Yeah, I think you've touched upon probably the two most difficult things when you talk about digital disruption or Industry 4.0, and it's the fact that as executives, as managers, we need to completely change the way we evaluate investment in projects. We all grew up on ROI, on return on investment, and that specific measure is pretty hard to find when you look at new innovative initiatives. I would like to discuss ROR, return on risk, rather than return on investment, because when you cannot evaluate how quickly you would monetize a new innovative concept, and you cannot evaluate how much will the technology cost you, because you might buy it for $10 million today and take it off the cloud for $1.99 tomorrow, right? So you don't have top line control, you don't have bottom line control, you cannot assess the ROI. So what we try to preach to companies seeking new Industry 4.0 initiatives is that really hard combination of zoom in, zoom out. So know where is it that you want to go, but start really small. Start with a couple of small initiatives, and they should be really use case based. So if you don't want to know what is it that you want to make out of it, is it better customer satisfaction? Is it better utilization of the machine? Is it a slight improvement of your purchase capacities, right? Then it will be hard for you to come back really quickly and say, based on data, I'm at the right direction, yes or no. So that zoom in, zoom out, acceptance of the ROR, and the ability to base your initiatives on very clear use cases, business-led, by the way. You asked who should be part of the... I'm a great believer in technology, right? But that entire journey, that entire path should be business-led, and I loved your point about the consumer-facing understanding. Only if we evaluate the value we create for our consumers can we go back to the drawing table and say, you know, we're going to tweak it and make it slightly better for them.
Just one comment. I think you were saying education. I would say maybe culture. So how we change the culture, and I would say it's a journey, and probably it will not happen tomorrow or the day after. But I think the most tricky point here is how you change the culture. And people were saying you need to train the trainers, and there are other segments that need to be implemented if you'd like to drive the 4.0 industry. But I think you were talking about Israelis. You say Israelis, they believe they can change the culture tomorrow. You talk to Americans, they said, okay, it can take decades. But we have to understand that if we would like to say that we're driving this 4.0 industry in Israel, we need to look on how we change the culture rather than, like a plaster. I think this is the most important thing. If we're looking at it, will be very successful.
Groucho Marx used to say about changing the culture that I have principles, and if you don't like them, I have other principles. So before having the final question, I just want to make a short announcement. Meirav raised the hand. This is Meirav. She's the GM of the Israeli High-Tech Association, and which belongs to the Israel Industrial Association. And we have a program together with the government on Industry 4. The government is investing in Industry 4. We have partners in Germany, the University of Aachen, and we have partners in the US, Stanford, and we have guys in the University of Tel Aviv and others, plus the industry, and now a program which is about, I think, 80 million shekels, 20-something million dollars, have been launched, that the industries that could be beneficiaries will go into Industry 4. So those that want more information can go to Merav and ask her questions. This is much better than you will ask me questions. And this brings us to the last question before anybody that wants to ask something, is from knowing the Israeli industry, who you think would be the main beneficiaries, at least in the short period, which industries in Israel would be the main beneficiaries?
Okay, Celia answer again. Hairdressers. How about hairdressers? Would have been very useful for me this morning. So I tried to go to a hairdresser this morning. It didn't work. So I sort of tried 2 or 3. They were hard to find. When I finally found them, they were booked out. They looked into their booking system, which was an old piece of paper, etc. We never got there. So I apologize for my appearance. The point I really want to make is I think it's everybody, including the hairdressers. I started my career in the music industry and sort of was one of the guys who tried to introduce peer-to-peer file sharing systems and all that stuff. Yes, so everybody said the music industry is going to be disrupted, but surely not us, the film industry. Netflix came along. Today, I think it's banking, it's maybe the car industry, but it will not stop. It will continue. In essence, every economic process we have is going to be fundamentally touched, disrupted, and changed by that, including hairdressers.
Yeah, I think if I mentioned before that as consultants we have a very good view of a lot of industries, you know who else have that view? The user, right? Users tend to measure their experience and products and everything, the way they interact with marketers and companies, not in the boundaries of a specific industry. So if I'm buying from Amazon and using Get or Uber and using all of these very cutting-edge technologies and experience in a lot of the fields and products I use, it doesn't make sense to me anymore that when I'm going to my hospital or postal office or any other governmental entity, I don't get the same type and the same caliber of experience. It just doesn't make sense anymore. And it's not a question if the competition is bringing it in, it's a question of how am I used to be treated. So I completely agree. Everybody will enjoy that because the standards and the bars are getting higher and we need that data and technology to address these.
Okay. Guys, this is the last 4 minutes, so if anybody has questions to anybody in the panel, please. Nobody has questions. So we finished 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 55 seconds earlier, and everybody can get a cold drink. Thank you very much to everybody.